Welcome to the SARE Ladies Podcast. This is where Asian American Pacific Islander women carve out their own space in real estate and shake up the status quo. Join your hosts, Anita Wong and Ashley Cao, as they dive deep into bold strategies, personal growth, and everything it takes to own it. From building wealth to boosting confidence. Let's jump in.
All right. Welcome, friends, to the season 6 of the SARE Ladies Podcast, the #1 real estate podcast where we get Asian women to skip the grind and own the damn thing. I'm your co-host this season, Anita Wong, multifamily investor and a new mom of 2.
And I'm Ashley Cao, commercial mortgage lender, investor, and recovering tech employee.
So today we are starting off season 6 with a bang because we had to have an emergency session. I'm a Bilt user. I had the credit card maybe starting just a few months ago. I'm fairly new. But I was really excited about it because I had heard it's one of these credit cards where you can put your rent and now your mortgage on it. And so we are here with one of our highest trending episodes of last season with Katherine Fan. Hi, Katherine. Welcome back.
Hey, it's good to be back, ladies.
Woohoo! Well, I appreciate you for coming to my rescue because there's no person I would rather talk about this to, because Katherine, if you don't know, is a personal finance and travel writer for sites like NerdWallet or The Points Guy. And if you haven't heard her on the first episode where she talks about credit card hacking for real estate investors, we're bringing her back to answer all the fiasco of which is Bilt 2.0. Welcome back. Well, excited to have you.
It's great to be back. Love a good gossip session.
Woohoo! I know. And just before we start, we'll just say that we are not sponsored by Bilt. We're not encouraging anyone to get it. Maybe don't follow in my footsteps if the episode does not pan out. But we're just to goss or just to brainstorm, because I've just been getting so many questions from people that are just confused because, if you were part of the Bilt 1.0, which I was an early adopter, right? You were forced into making a choice. There was a time limit of which you had to make a choice to choose either 3 new selections, 3 new credit cards for Bilt 2.0, or be shifted back into, well, not shifted back, but into the Wells Fargo family. And Katherine, maybe you can give a bit of a background of all that.
Yeah. So quick context. Bilt is a credit card that came out around early pandemic era. I think it was 2021. Their marketing is very catchy. So I can almost spit you the whole thing from memory, but their whole idea was helping people earn rewards on their #1 expense, which for the average person is rent. For those of us with mortgages, we were definitely curious, but for many, many years, Bilt did not have any capability for mortgage people, and they had been teasing it for a good long time. Bilt is confusing to begin with because it is both a credit card and now kind of a lifestyle rewards platform. So it's kind of like your all of the bucks, all of the online stuff all rolled into one. You can get rewards for dining. You can get extra points for linking your credit card to their dining program. You can get rewards for rent, obviously, but you could also use those points to book berries and SoulCycle and stuff like that. So as you're hearing me talk about this, you're getting a little bit of a mental picture. Okay, it's great for people in high cost of living cities, young tech professionals, New York City, LA, San Francisco, those kinds of spots. Now, for a long time, Bilt has been saying they were going to add mortgage capability. Behind the scenes, as you can find from articles like in the New York Times from a couple of years back, they kind of did a little bit of an expose that said Wells Fargo, which had backed the Bilt credit card, was losing tons of money, allowing people to float rent for at least half the month thereabouts. So you pay it on the 1st, you don't pay off your card, let's say, until the 25th of the month. So you're essentially getting 3.5 weeks of free rent. That capability is going away with the new card, but Wells Fargo lost a ton of money. It was very publicly discussed in mainstream news a couple of years back, and speculation on Reddit and people who know but don't fully know, because I think everyone who does fully know is locked up under NDAs. They were all speculating that the reason Bilt's new push has been so precipitous in some ways is probably because Wells Fargo was like, we're done, pulled whatever kind of emergency report they needed, and Bilt just had to stick with this timeline. So if you don't know the context, Bilt has been saying since fall 2025 that they would be changing their systems, they would be adding new cards, and they would also be changing the issuing bank behind the card would change. So up until now, they were issued by Wells Fargo. They are now going to be issued by Column Bank, which is a small fintech. Do not quote me on the specifics of this, but it is a bank most of us don't know about. And the issuer partnering with Column is called Cardless. So it's a fairly well-known small fintech in the credit card space. They back a lot of airline credit cards, primarily like international credit cards that international airlines that would have a harder time partnering with a US bank. Cardless is good for that. For myself, I've had a Bilt card since 2022. I kind of see that as a red flag to begin with. If a major bank in the US no longer wants to back a credit card, I'm a little wary about what's going on there. Hopefully it's what was stated in the article and the issuing bank just wants to save money. Makes sense. But it does give me some pause about moving forward. So they began teasing these new cards that would be coming down the line. We got information about them on January 14th, 2026. So just a few weeks ago. And the change was going to take place February 7th, which is coming up. They had 3 cards that were coming out. The current card, Bilt 1.0, does not have an annual fee. They will still have a version that has no annual fee, but they now also have a $95 annual fee card and a $495 card. So these all have the predictable bougie names that go with credit cards. The no fee one is called the Blue. The mid-tier one is called the Obsidian. And the $495 card is called the Palladium. I'll go through the benefits very briefly because the real drama is not so much in that as it is in the rollout and what that means for investors. So the no annual fee card, none of them charge transaction fees to pay rent. So that means you will not be paying a 3% bonus, 3% transaction fee in order to pay your rent with this credit card. However, with Bilt 2.0, none of the cards now allow you to float your rent anymore. Bilt is essentially going to link to your ACH and draw the money from your account pretty much the same way you would if you linked your own bank accounts to your mortgage lender or your rental property management. So that means no transaction fees, but also no particular benefit to doing that unless you want to earn points. Now, if you want to unlock points for your transaction every month, you now have a new added spend requirement. So initially, Bilt 2.0 came out with just one. It's called Bilt Cash. It sounds very nice. So in addition to your bonus rewards on other kinds of spending, you would earn 4% Bilt Cash on all non-housing related payments. Okay, here's kind of the disclaimer part. There are some types of payments that do not earn rewards. That includes housing, but other things like taxes as well. So that's an important one for investors to think about, because if you're thinking, I'll pay my property taxes, it'll be well worth it, not going to make sense unless it's already charged through your mortgage lender as part of, say, escrow or something like that. So if you wanted to earn rewards for your housing payments, you have to have Bilt Cash to pay for rent. So let's say your mortgage is $5,000 a month. Bilt Cash can unlock points for housing payments at a $30 to 1,000 point ratio. It's kind of a complicated number, so we'll just say for $5,000 a month, you need $150 of Bilt Cash per month. You can earn 4% Bilt Cash per dollar you spend on eligible payments. So let's say if I spend $4,000 on non-housing on Bilt every month, and I spend $5,000 a month on my housing, I will earn $160 $160 Bilt cash, which will be enough to unlock my rent payment. If this sounds complicated, it is. And that was one of the very biggest pieces of feedback they got. Everybody was like, WTF? Why are you making my life hard? I don't want to do math for my credit card. And a lot of angry people on Reddit and social media were like, screw this. I don't want this card anymore. 2 days after that, 2 days, somewhere in the 2 days to 1 week, they came out with an email saying they were coming up with a second method for you to earn your points from housing payments. And that other option is just housing only, no more Bilt cash, but more straightforward. So again, now let's say your rent is $1,000 a month. If you spend, oh my gosh, I got to remember the lower numbers for this. But if you spend a certain amount of your rent on the card, let's say you spent $500 on the card and then $1,000 for housing, then you would unlock a certain percentage of points. If you spend $1,000 on housing and you spend $1,000 on non-housing, then you could get up to 1.25% points. So again, I would earn however many points I'm going to get for regular spend, plus up to $1,250 for my $1,000 of rent. If that's still complicated, that was also the feedback. So I'm very annoyed. And then there were other issues as well. There was some drama. There have been multiple issues with the rollout in general. So if it sounds like a lot, it has been a lot. And most people don't need to know all that detail. But the very quick summary of it is I'm hesitant to recommend this for people despite it now having the mortgage capability we were talking about, simply because I don't think it's worth the extra effort to think about and that emotional drain of feeling the scarcity, the pressure, the urgency to like maximize everything you can. Credit cards optimization is kind of that to begin with. Do it if you like it. Don't do it if it's stressful, because it's not going to be what actually makes you successful as an investor. It's a nice little extra on the side. And this card, I think, even more so than most, more work than it can be worth.
I have lots of questions. Okay, so I guess I want to take a couple steps back. So I don't have this card yet, and I have considered getting the card because I have mortgages to pay. I have so what you're talking about, the Bilt cash, and then the other option, is that still a thing, or now it's converted into the blue obsidian and the third one, I forgot what it's called.
Palladium.
So has that changed? Like, is the cash option still there, or now do you have to choose one of the new 3 cards?
Yeah, the cash option is still there. So it's actually, if you think about it as a matrix,
Okay.
3 cards, and each of them has 2 different ways you can choose to earn on it. So you have 6 different options to compare to begin with.
Okay.
There are some pretty good calculators out there for it. If you look on Reddit, an easy one is nextcard.com. It's probably the closest, I would say, for specifically for investors to consider, because it kind of compares the value of the points as well as option 1 and option 2 at the same time. But it's still not fully optimized for the way that we would think versus the average person who just happens to have a very expensive house or apartment.
Okay. Gotcha. So you're an investor, obviously. And so, there's a decision that has to be made in the next 2 days for you card holders. And so, like, because you're an investor, how would you approach it? Like, what's kind of your plan as far as moving forward and selecting which card you would use for yourself?
Yeah.
Wearing the hat of an investor, right?
Yeah, totally. I would say the main difference, even for the beginning of this launch, is that typically when I have information in front of me, I actually had to make a decision several days ago already. So again, it was a short window. There was a lot of artificial timing for sure. But I think as an investor, the first and foremost thing I always think about is there urgency, and is the urgency coming from me or is it coming from an outside source? So that's already been a little bit of a red flag for me. This, regardless of whether I'm a big or small investor, actually the smaller you are, the more the money I think is a percentage of your courage in putting yourself out there. So like, even if you only have one property, keep that in mind. if you're ever in a situation where you're getting a lot of pressure from someone to make a financial decision, but you don't have that sense of peace yet for yourself, be very wary of an environment that's like, you have to do it now. This is the best deal you'll ever get. You're going to lose out if you don't go ahead and do this. And in this particular case, it actually, there have been so many changes since that first announcement on January 14th that it's an even better example of, like, again, red flags, because there always will be a better opportunity, right? The worst thing you can do as an investor is to panic and jump on a contract without knowing what it fully entails or knowing if it'll maybe change. Like, we all have a deal here or there that's been like, ooh, I learned to just walk away from that one, even though I signed something. Sometimes you just spend money to get yourself out of it. The thing that made me finally pull the trigger was enough people have complained and personally reached out to the leadership that they have changed multiple times. Mm-hmm. One thing I didn't mention yet is that a lot of people who already were card holders got denied or got like a ridiculous credit limit. And the thing to remember about credit cards is that they do impact your personal credit almost always, unless you are exclusively applying for business credit cards that genuinely do not touch your personal credit. So if you have any plans to refinance, to purchase, to do anything that impacts your credit from a real estate investment perspective, remember that your credit card hits will have some kind of impact on that. So a lot of people were interested in the card because they were curious to know if it might work for them, but it would have essentially counted as yet another credit report on your account. It depends on which of the cards you kept, if you wanted to keep a Wells Fargo card, if you wanted to go to Bilt. But the short answer is that anyone who was investing needed to think about, is this going to impact my credit in a way that has a deeper impact for me than it would for the average person who can get a credit card whenever and it doesn't mean anything. But let's say Anita or Ashley, you're looking to make a purchase in the next 3 to 6 months, having that extra credit report on your account impact your ability to get the lending terms that you want. For me, what I ended up finally deciding was, once all was said and done and they had finally settled on the final for now version of the card, I did the math to see how much I would have to spend on the card outside of housing to make it worthwhile. So again, going back to that example of saying you've got a $5,000 mortgage, a $5,000 a month mortgage. So at $60K a year, you're spending 60,000 points. Still isn't all that much in the credit cards world, because if you sign up for a new credit card, you often can get a sign-up bonus right then and there that is worth 60K or more. Mm-hmm. The most valuable points you can get through the Bilt card are if you transfer to Hyatt, the hotel chain, or Alaska Airlines, which now also has merged with Hawaiian Airlines. It's not because you necessarily want to stay at those particular properties or fly on that airline, but they have the most value in terms of other flights you can transfer them to. So 60,000 points. I personally am not looking to sign up for any new credit cards. So for me, it did make sense to get another card because that could be beneficial. There's also a sign-up bonus right now on the highest card that would be worth essentially double what that mortgage would be worth. Now, again, remember that one has an annual fee of $495. So I'm weighing, am I willing to spend $495 even to unlock the opportunity to earn these points? If you do the Bilt Cash option, that's the one that requires the least amount of spend on this credit card. So for a $5,000 mortgage, I would have to spend enough to earn $150 of Bilt Cash every month, which I think I did some quick math. It's about $4,000, right? I would earn $160 in Bilt Cash at a 4% per dollar rate. So that'll be just about enough to get me over. And let's say I want to spend as little as possible on my card to still unlock those points. Then I can factor in the bonus. So there's a $300 bonus, $300 Bilt Cash bonus associated with getting that highest tier card right now. Again, remember, Bilt Cash sounds flashy. It's not really, because there are a lot of restrictions on how you can use it. The best redemption is almost overwhelmingly going to be to unlock your housing points. So if I went ahead and did that, I'm looking at spending still well over $3,000 a month on the card for a $5,000 mortgage. So ultimately, these cards actually make the most sense for people who have fairly low housing expenses, because now the way the fraction has flipped, the lower your housing costs and the more you spend on this card, the more you can unlock up to a certain tipping point. You can earn up to 1.25x or however much you want to unlock with Bilt Cash. But as with anything else in investing, you're not just looking at how much you can get with this one card. You're looking to see what your opportunity cost is. Where else could I be earning more? I chatted with you a little bit earlier about, there are a lot of good cashback cards out there. So especially when you're an investor, cash is king, right? You never know when you need to buy a new water heater or something like that. Bilt Cash will not unlock that for you, neither will airline points. So if you are particularly looking at investing with an eye to using these returns for something that you might need extra money for, stick with a cashback card. There are some really good ones out there that earn up to 3 to 4% back, depending on how much cash you have invested with the bank or something like that.
Okay. This is so interesting. So, and then I kind of want to go back to the part where you're saying that if you pay for your rent or your mortgage through the card, it's just like they're pulling an ACH from your bank. And so like, I'm just thinking through, like when I pay for my mortgage, it's a routing number and an account number that I punch in. And so this is so simple, but like, I obviously don't have the card. So how do you use the card to actually pay for your mortgage if it requires a routing number and ACH or account number?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And it's very astute, actually. So I don't know how it's going to happen with Bilt 2.0 yet, because I haven't gotten mine yet.
Mm-hmm.
But the way it worked for Bilt 1.0 is they gave you a virtual routing number. Again, it's going to become completely different because it's now no longer backed by Wells Fargo. So I don't know if they'll handle it differently. I'm thinking that their platform will probably just allow you to input your current ACH information, because essentially what they did was give you a dummy virtual account, which you could use for a lot of things. And they had to manually flag if you were abusing it. They did. There has been Reddit information about that, but I don't think that will happen any longer. I think they will probably just allow you to link your account directly, and they'll basically be the middleman who kind of watches money come and go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that was the way with the rent, right? Or they were just like kind of writing checks over to, to your landlord or whatever. Like they were literally, but you would have to pay it. What Katherine said earlier, like you didn't have to pay your rent, which is due at the first, basically all the way until the end of the month. So basically they were kind of floating people all the way to the end. And I was like, thinking about the risk that, Wells Fargo had to undertake, because I think it was like I read something that Wells Fargo was hemorrhaging $10 million a month, basically on the loss, broke their contract with Bilt. And that's like how this whole thing, right? And I was just like, well, that kind of sparks red flags, right? And on top of that, they're like they're adding more and more confusing language. And I think if anyone tries to make the process harder for you, means that, first of all, there's too many people gaming the system. And, you're just kind of earning points on other people's dimes. And so I think I wanted to ask about, I guess, what is the risk for consumers here? Because, I mean, for me, like the choice is that, okay, well, there's no other choice out there for what the biggest payment I actually have to make for rent, for mortgage. So there's no other vendor out there that is willing to, there's no other option for me to earn points from that. And so let's say they go bankrupt tomorrow, or maybe let's just say give it 6 months or so. I mean, I've accrued theoretically some points at someone else's expense, right? Because the debt will still be there. I'll still have to pay the debt no matter what.
Right.
So is that kind of the game that people are playing now, or what's going on?
Yeah. So actually we'll talk a little bit about another card that did exist for a hot minute. It was the Mesa card, and it actually died sometime late 2025. So it was kind of trying to go head to head with Bilt. So before Bilt partnered with Wells Fargo, it was backed by another relatively no-name bank issuer. And I was hesitant to get the card at that time too, for much the same reason. Again, kind of no name, my money, my whole credit identity is linked to this thing. I wanted to be pretty careful about it. But Mesa was a competitor that popped up maybe late 2023, early 2024. And they were trying to get started and they folded relatively quickly. So everyone who had decided to go all in on it, they were specifically for mortgages. So I'm guessing based on that, there's so many factors that go into a company or a product success or otherwise. But the fact that it folded so quickly is probably exactly like what you said, Anita. Wells Fargo's hemorrhaging money. We've seen a competitor also fold that was trying to target things like mortgages. So I think, not a financial analyst, but there must be something to rent and mortgage payments that are just not that conducive to one-on-one rewards yet. I think it's possible, but like you said, someone's definitely paying the deficit on where these rewards come from. For a little bit of context, typically the US is one of the only countries in the world that offers as generous credit card rewards, but they're not completely free, right? Like we are heavily marketed to for many different things. People pay a 3% transaction fee. That fee kind of goes toward offsetting the cost of rewards. So while it does feel like we're getting a lot of free stuff for nothing, it does come from somewhere. There are also some arguments that poorer people are the ones who end up really footing the bill for credit card rewards, because if you can't afford credit, the cost of everything is already raised by 3 to 5% to offset those transaction fees. So even if you pay for everything in all cash at the grocery store, you're still paying approximately the same rate that has those fees built in. So not getting into all the details of all that, but the risk for individuals is not just, the morality of it or the safety of it, but the uncertainty of it. Your time is worth money as well. And when you are so carefully trying to make sure you maximize your payments this month, whether you pay $95 or $4.95 a month, or even if you're looking for the free card, if you have other credit cards that earn you easier returns, you really have to think about, Anita, you have kids, is the extra 15, 20 minutes that you spend on this card worth it? Or would you rather have that time to spend with your kids when you're already a busy investor, working mom, they go to bed early, time is already limited. So that's not to say yes or no, but it is something that everyone needs to think about for opportunity cost once again.
Yeah, and I think the risk here too is that mortgages are big balances, rents are big balances, right? This heavily skews the picture of what your credit looks like, right? Especially if someone doesn't pay it, right? That's
right.
Big risk for banks who doesn't know that you can pay another $10,000 or accrue the money to do so, and it's only just one fee, right? It's like one large fee. So they're not really collecting a whole lot either on it. So there's not a whole lot of upside. So yeah, I was like, how sustainable is this? It seems like this holy grail of a thing that people want to do, but it doesn't seem viable unless basically it's what Bilt is proposing is essentially replace all your personal credit cards or all, and just use Bilt, because that's the only way that you can get essentially 75. You need to spend 75% of the housing income, or in house, like your mortgage and your rent together, in order to receive full points, right? And that's a lot. That's
it's a
lot.
And especially to your point earlier about like, what if you have larger investment portfolios? I mean, realistically, something's going wrong. If let's say you have $100,000 a month, $80,000 a month is wild and expensive. You never want to get anywhere close to that as an investor, right? But there's this, it's a psychological thing. It's just, the way we're wired as humans, we want to maximize it. So I think more than ever, it's going to be very tempting to want to spend more, to get more. And we don't even know half the time what we want to do with these points. There was another point you made earlier, Anita. I'll come back to it if I can think of it. But you had said something about like what type of person should consider this, or does it make sense if you have a large investment portfolio? So again, coming back to what I said earlier, actually, if you really want to do it as an investor, I would maybe put one mortgage on it. I would put your personal one on it, Oh, I remember what it was. We were talking about business expenses, and you were talking about most of what goes through some of your investment portfolios is managed by a third party. This is not a
Mhm.
business credit card. And
Mhm.
again, most of what we do in investing is try to mitigate as much personal risk as possible. We want to have LLCs set up. We want to make sure that tenants can't sue us personally. I can only imagine how chaotic and stressful it would be if, for whatever reason, something that was linked to this personal credit card got linked to all those LLCs. So if I had a friend who spent $7,000 to get 4 or 5 properties set up into separate businesses just so that they would be unlinked from her and her family. If you used all of that to pay with a single credit card, you've kind of undone all that work all over again.
Yeah, absolutely. I had considered, this using this credit card for myself and for my multifamily properties, which mortgage just on one of my properties is probably about $50,000, right? And yeah, we can spend that much, but then we use a third party who needs to kind of do all that accounting, and then it removes us from. It would need to be a credit card that's applied by the LLC in order to have those protections in place. So I was like, well, that's kind of a fluke. You kind of have to do all of your
Yeah.
accounting again, and
Not
then
to mention you might not even get approved because, again,
Yes.
it's not a traditional bank. So who knows what their approval process is like. And they may not be set up to approve an LLC versus an individual.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's just going to be so much more headache for you to direct people to be using the single credit card that it may not even be worth all of the headache.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, let's step back from that. Okay. So what about someone, let's say with just beyond their own personal homes? Is it still worth it for someone with a small portfolio, maybe like around $10,000 to use, one of these credit cards?
Yeah, again, like we said just now, I would say weigh your personal comfort with this specific risk. There's different kinds of risks. I think getting yourself to an investment portfolio of $10,000 a month in payments, that is a risk. But gambling that and your personal life against earning rewards, that's a different kind of risk. So one is more like enjoyable and one is more for your long term, right? So everybody has different comfort levels. Again, let's say $10,000. Maybe you just have a really nice home and a vacation home, and you occasionally rent that out. It's not a bad idea necessarily to go ahead and do that. I would say Bilt 2.0 now makes the most sense for casual investors. So again, quick summary: I have 6 doors, 3 actual buildings, so just 3 mortgages. I think it makes sense for me just this first year. We'll see how it goes. But I actually was pretty prepared to walk away. And it wasn't until the last week or so when they finally solidified some of those changes. I'm taking a big gamble on it. I literally would not do it if this wasn't pretty closely linked to my day job. So I would say, even for me, I was pretty iffy on it. But there are a lot of people out there who are pretty gung ho on it. So I don't want to say that that doesn't exist. One benefit I will say that I haven't seen anyone highlight yet, so you guys got the exclusive. It's deep in the terms, it's deep in the guide to benefits, but this is a top tier MasterCard. So the mid tier and the highest tier cards, so that's the Obsidian and the Palladium, they both come with MasterCard's 2-year warranty, extended warranty on purchases. Most of the other credit cards out there, including the top premium ones, only extend warranties by a single year. I had to buy a fridge for my multifamily last year. It wasn't crazy expensive. I bought the cheapest one. It was like $700 or $800. But that also means, it's so hit or miss on these things, and the warranties are not that great. So even if I'd bought one through the manufacturer, I'm always kind of iffy about manufacturer warranties because, they're really good at fighting you on those. This one essentially just says we extend your warranty by 2 additional years on eligible items you purchase that have warranties of 24 months or less. So essentially for that fridge, if I had bought it with this card, didn't exist at the time, but if I had, I would have up to 4 years. Again, still all the disclaimers that happen with warranties. I would have had to make sure it was eligible. I would have had to follow up. I would have to fight to get my money back. But that is a nice thing to keep in mind if you happen to have a lot of expenses. One other way to consider using this card is don't use it for your mortgages, but maybe do use it for things like these individual purchases. Again, maybe not if you have a massive investment portfolio, you don't want to buy 100 fridges, try to track them all down. That sounds like a pain in the butt. But if you're only buying maybe 1 or 2 appliances a year, this could be a very good card to consider for those one-off expenses, because even the best business cards out there are maybe giving you 3% back on appliances. And if you got the highest tier one here, you'd be getting 2% back, and you get that 2-year warranty. Again, you really have to weigh it, because you could also just buy a warranty outright or insure it with something else. And the overall cost of that is probably a lot lower, but it's not as fun. So these are the kinds of considerations that everyone has to think about. So I think the real bummer with Bilt is that there is no easy one size fits all. I can't even tell you there's a dollar amount at which it makes sense. It's more work than even the average credit card, but it does have a few little special loopholes here and there that I think some people are very gung-ho about, because they've figured out a way it makes sense for their specific circumstances. But I haven't seen someone talking about the impact of, again, using a personal credit card for business expenses, the risk of exposure, loss, identity theft, your business investment finances being attached. Those are all things to think about.
Right, absolutely. And Bilt hasn't been around for, for all of these things to really be closed the loop. It just kind of seems like they're fly by their pants right now. Yeah. Do you think that with the launch and how it's going, that you think that Bilt, may survive another year?
I think they're going to survive one more year. I'm very curious to see what happens next January, because even the people who are pretty gung-ho about it are like, we'll see how it goes for the first year. So I think we will have a repeat of this situation come January 2027, where we may get a lot of emails being like, this is the best thing that's ever happened. I will tell you one funny anecdote. I guess in How I Met Your Mother, there is an episode where one of the guys is talking about how if you make up a fake statistic, you always use the number 83, like 83%, blah, blah, blah. There was an email from the CEO this past week that immediately got picked up on Reddit, because everyone was like posting this meme from How I Met Your Mother over and over again, because it did say more than 83% of our active card holders have applied for this card. So the non-snarky people, instead of just posting the meme, did say, how do you define active card holder? What does apply mean? Were they approved? Which card did they apply for? Was it a Bilt card they applied for? So just a good reminder that marketing language is marketing language. And
yeah. Wow. I actually had heard there was a few, our friends that, didn't get approved for the credit card, even though they were approved for the Bilt 1.0. Mm-hmm. And so are they doing like just like a reassessment, or just a glitch, you think?
I think they did a reassessment. And I think the interesting thing about it is maybe this new company came back, whatever their metrics are. They didn't even use the standard credit bureaus, Experian, Equifax, TransUnion. Everyone's like, it is a mystery what Cardless uses to assess financial risk and eligibility. But I'll give you an example for me. I had a $10,000 credit limit on Bilt 1.0. They offered me $20,000 on Bilt 2.0, but they didn't give me the card I asked for. They gave me the base level card. And they said, you're not eligible for anything else. I called, I emailed, I checked in to see what else. And then I was just like, okay, I'm just going to give up. A few days later, I log into my phone and they were like, oh, well, we've decided to give you this card if you want it. So I think someone in there is manually going back through. A lot of people got emails from, I think, the COO, allegedly like a personal email from him specifically. But it went back to, I think, like notifications at BiltCard.com. So people are like, about this. But one guy on Reddit was like, I wrote this impassioned email back. I was like, I think this is an automated account, but if this is real, here are my critiques, blah, blah, blah. Then he allegedly heard back from another executive who was like, I would love to hear your feedback. You want to call me? He's like, yeah, call me now. He's like, I'm in a meeting. I'll call you in 15 minutes. Now, everyone's critique on Reddit for that guy was his account was 26 days old when he posted, and he had no other post. But I was like, I don't necessarily think that's fake. Probably people don't want their real accounts linked to something that is essentially jumping on something that is iffy. So these are the anecdotes that are showing up on Reddit these days. Who knows what's AI and who knows what's paid marketing, but it does seem like
boy.
they recognize they have some catch up to do. So I think they've been trying to clean up as much as they can. But like to your point, you have people who are very consistent, longtime Bilt card users who weren't just there to game the system. A lot of them got denied, even though they're high earning, financially responsible. I don't know. It's possible Bilt doesn't want very financially responsible people. Who knows?
They want the confused.
Statistically speaking, too.
Use them even more.
That's right. You make the best money off of the people who end up incurring risk. So we may not be the best demographic out there.
I know. I think I definitely I think they try to make a lot of money off the people that don't read the fine print, and that was probably me for some time, because I had no idea the first Bilt 1.0 that you had to do 4 separate transactions. So this is me literally buying 4 single bananas, like in order to
that counts.
It does count. And then they will obviously have doesn't exist anymore, because people were not making money off of like $6 transactions. Which I was doing. In order to keep all of my points, I had to make 4 separate transactions. Now it's a percentage.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I mean, I am, I still don't know what to do. I'll say that.
What happens if you don't do anything?
If you don't do anything, your card turns into a Wells Fargo no fee. Yeah. And it's funny because actually they gave people an extension. I think that they were hoping for more people. And so they gave people an extension, but the Wells Fargo's cards actually already arrived at my house by the time,
Wow.
Mine too.
There's a little bit of like mixing. So I was like, now we have to cancel these Wells Fargo's cards if we want to continue with the Bilt 2.0 card.
No, actually, I will say you don't have to. You can keep both. So actually, Bilt will be a new credit card you open. Your Wells Fargo one keeps your history. It's so messy.
Wow.
But I opted for both. And that's because I personally am, well, again, like I said, I review these cards for a living. So I am curious to see how the Bilt card goes. Curiosity got this cat. But Wells Fargo will keep your card account. So even though your card number will change, that's because it's going from a MasterCard, which is what Bilt is, over to a Visa signature card, which is what the Wells Fargo autograph card is. And I will just throw in a random plug. I have, again, no affiliation with either of these companies, but the Wells Fargo autograph card is actually an okay travel card. It's not compatible with like comparable with, say, the Chase Sapphire Preferred, but for a no annual fee card, it's pretty solid. So it's a little late now. The benefits, you earn fairly decent travel every day. It's essentially like a 2x catch-all card.
Okay.
I believe.
Gotcha.
So Wells Fargo doesn't have the biggest travel network just yet. But like I was saying, cashback cards can actually be really good for investors. The Wells Fargo autograph card is a way better fit for casual use than the Bilt card is. It doesn't earn anything on rent and mortgage. But again, remember, you don't traditionally earn rewards on rent and mortgage. So we'll see if that's still around in a year or not. Quick summary: if you're a big investor and gambler, try the Bilt card. If you're not, Wells Fargo is totally fine. If you don't like any of this and you're tired and you want to go back to bananas, get rid of both cards. There are better cards for investors out there.
If you do end up trying this, I want to hear your experience. So please comment below about what you decided to do. And I know that people are kind of wanting to try it. We know that, we're real estate investors. We want to try everything a little bit just to make a little bit of money off the top that we're already making anyway. So, if that's you, let us know.
Cool. Well, I have one more question. Because it's a new year, are there any other new cards or programs that you think that we should keep an eye on outside of Bilt as a real estate investor?
That's a really good question. Okay. I am going to say, because we talked a little bit about the benefits of business versus personal cards, I would say if you are a serious investor, and how am I going to define that? I would say if you're fairly aggressively hoping to expand, or you have some pretty big renovations coming up and you'd like to put as much of that on a card as possible, look into business credit cards because, again, separation is very important. So, if you have a GC, I want you to be able to give them an authorized user card, someone you really trust. I'm talking like family member, business partner, something like that. But you want them to have a card, and you also want to be able to see what they're buying. So when they go to Home Depot or Sherwin-Williams to buy like 5 billion gallons of paint, you want to see that transaction because your accountant's going to need it. Business credit cards are way better for that sort of thing. Personal cards, hot mess. And then with Bilt, you even have to pay for authorized users. So Anita, if your husband wants a card, he's got to pay. You got to pay. But for business credit cards, one of the number one things they always tout is you can get authorized user cards. You can often limit how much people spend. Some of the best ones you can even limit to specific projects. So if you have one LLC, there are 3 buildings in it, and they have different projects going on, you could even issue cards to individual GCs under each of those projects. And then you can set a dollar amount you want them to spend. I don't think you can limit them to purchases only for that, but you have a lot more granular insight into where the money is going. So if you misplace like one order of paint, let's say one went to building A instead of building C and they're separate projects, you can track that down very easily. Whereas again, you went to Sherwin-Williams and bought 5 billion gallons of paint. So you have no idea where any of it went with a personal card.
Cool. Well, this was a very useful conversation. I don't know if I'm going to get a Bilt card, but I'm interested to have a 3rd episode with you, Katherine, in like a year to kind of see where you land and you, Anita, land as far as your Bilt card usage and all that stuff. And maybe we will talk about a Bilt 3.0 in a year from now.
Yeah, and I'll let you know if any competitors decide to enter this space, because I feel like between the 1-2 punch of Bilt and Mesa, I'm super curious to see if someone is able to come at this return in some different way.
The chances seem low that a Chase would come and do something like this. So, but here's hoping. Maybe they'll be so profitable that Chase will have no choice. I
do think it would be really interesting, right? If one of these massive banks that also services a ton of loans and mortgages came into it. That being said, I think the fact that none of them has might also tell us something about the profitability.
They probably underwrote the living crap out of it and said, this is way too
100%. People like us talking on podcasts.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I think if you caught Katherine's first episode, it is going to be linked below. But Katherine, what are you working on? I know that you were talking about doing a new website, content for investor travelers last episode. What's going on now?
Yes, I know. I need to actually do it. I would say one of the easiest ways to find me in general is on Instagram. My last name's Fan, so I just go by Katherine Fangirling. The Investor Traveler site, I'm trying to figure out how I want to organize it because it's not just for investors. But Points for Therapy, Substack, or Instagram, Anita build those out.
Cool. All right. Well, if this episode resonated, share it with a friend and leave us a review. It will help more people hear our content. So we'll see you next time on the SARE Ladies Podcast.
Yay. Also, definitely tell us if you have the Bilt card because we want to know. We want to know all the good things.
Yes. Please tell us. All right. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the SARE Ladies Podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, make sure to follow, share, and leave us a review. It helps more women in real estate find this community. And don't forget to connect with us at sareladies.com for more resources, stories, and support on your investing journey. Until next time, keep building, keep learning, and keep breaking barriers.